manslaughter complete, right? So we have this concept here, the corporate manslaughter, corporate homicide Act 2007. And what this is again a law they have in the UK. And what this did, it created what they call like a new charge then, something called corporate manslaughter, right? In which if an employee dies under the care of their employer, the employer could be charged for murder, right? I don't think we have this in Trinidad, but this is what this law would have done here, right? So it created like a new offense, right, called corporate manslaughter. And how the employer could be charged for this is if what they say that their level of duty, right, if their level of duty falls far below what would have been expected of them, right? They refer to that as a gross breach, right? If there is some expectation then from the employee and what was provided falls far below what would have normally been provided, that is called a gross breach. And once you can prove a gross breach, the employer could be charged with corporate manslaughter, right? So I still added folks if you wonder what I'm doing in the background there, trying to add people come in, right? So an example of that we have BP, right? We had BP. Two employees of the British oil giant BP have been indicted on manslaughter charges in connection with the 2010 Gulf oil rig blowout that killed 11 workers, right? So what is meant here was that two managers then, and when they say employees, it was actually two managers, were sentenced to jail, right, for murder, right, coming out anyway. So that, in terms of health and safety, is what they refer to as corporate manslaughter anyway. This has come for exam before, and basically it just had in it what was corporate manslaughter and what is needed to prove corporate manslaughter. The answer would have been what I said before. It had to be a gross breach, right? The breach, hold on a better, let's see to add someone. The breach of duty would be gross if the management of health and safety falls far below that which would reasonably be expected, right? On conviction, the offense is punishable by an unlimited fine. It's seldom less than £500,000. And then the courts can mandate that organization publicize the facts, the amounts of fine and particulars of the offense once convicted in the papers, right? In the daily papers they have in the UK, which is, believe it or not, the same papers we have in Trinidad, right? Trinidad would have, I wonder what is the word to use. I probably would say borrowed the name of their papers, right? The Express is the name of the papers in England, as well as the Guardian, right? Those were not originally, or original names thought about in Trinidad here, the Express and Guardian are two papers you have in the UK, right? So this is almost like adding again insult to injury, that once the company is fined, if the breach is a gross breach, the director manager could be sentenced to jail, and then the company has to publish that in the papers, right, for public information anyway, right? So I'll move on from this. Hopefully it's just those 2 points you need to know anyway. Gross breach, and you know, most of what the corporate manslaughter, corporate homicide act is actually an extension of section 37 of the same old Health and Safety at Work Act 1974, in which if a death occurs, the managers would be responsible, right? So That's what you find here, right? Directors and managers, they have a duty under Section 37 of the HSW Act, and the Corporate Manslaughter, Corporate Homicide Act would have extended that to be that they could have been charged for murder, right? This piece here, we would have touched on this already. This is Donoghue versus Stevenson. They part with common law or civil law. And I think we may have defined this already, negligence. If not, I'll just do it again. A tort is a civil wrongdoing. Tort is a Latin word that means wrongdoing. It's spelled the way you see it there, T-O-R-T. Negligence is when loss has resulted from a tort being committed or a wrongdoing being committed. And we mentioned this case already, which I wouldn't go too much in again, but it was Donoghue versus Stevenson. May Donoghue, M-E-Y, could consume a bottle of ginger beer, but it had a decomposed snail in it. And she took the beer company to court, Stevenson and Sons. The judge, his name was Lord Atkin. He saw her as being a neighbor. He called her neighbor, right? A neighbor to the beer company. The reason why he used the word neighbor or neighbor principle is that your neighbor is someone affected by you, all right? I think I used this illustration before. If your neighbor is making noise, playing music anyway, you would be affected by that. So he said that the fact that there was a snail in the bottle and she's affected by the snail, it comes as if she's a neighbor to the beer company. So therefore, they had a duty to her. It's almost similar to how we refer to the consumer-supplier relationship, right? This is a memorial to her. I think I was telling you all that wherever you are in the world, I mean, we are in Trinidad, you all have never heard about this place before, but wherever you are in the world and you're studying law, because we are not quite studying law, but we're studying safety and the law is a part of it anyway, they have a memorial for her because her case is what they call a precedent case. Isley, as it is pronounced, is actually in Scotland. The UK, the UK is, the UK describes England, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales, right? But Paisley here is actually in Scotland, right? So a picture of the cafe, believe it or not, I think I was telling you all, even if you see a colored picture of Scotland and what the bars look like, they look just like that. The buildings are not colored, they're more or less brownish brick-like color anyway, right? So that is about the only public picture that we could have found, that is available, I guess, on the internet of that place anyway, that cafe anyway, right? So here on this study have a very good definition of the term negligence. You would want to learn this definition by heart. Negligence, they say, is a lack of reasonable care or conduct that results in a civil wrong, which was the word tort. As a result of that wrong, and the rest of the information, you want to that's what you want, right? So I don't think that they want to respond, but I did not see that. This is something that these things is not very common, but this is something that if you have the anyone involved, it does not have the safety. I guess a neighbor, if you want to use the term neighbor again, something related with a neighbor or something like something that should be for them and they're not being able to rent and probably two parties together paying for a car and one of them to keep up with the installment. So we have to prove that they owe you they breach duty of care, and because of the breach, you have suffered some sort of loss or some sort of injury. I think I mentioned to you all, if you all have seen Judge Judy, which I think we've all seen Judge Judy, where like two partners come together, one of them didn't hold up to the end of an agreement, right? They was not given the idea of Judge Judy's because normally for these claims, there is no jury. It's just you, the other person, and the judge, right? So there's no jury because this is not like a murder case then. This is just you maybe seeking, I'm using some local Trinidad examples, right? Like let's say you may be seeking clarification on why your neighbor has gotten into your land. A very common thing, is maybe why, they have allowed, I don't know, pollution or something, oil or something into your land, right? So something like that, I guess. I don't know if that's common. It may be common to certain farmers anyway, right? But likewise, I think for health and safety, I had to prove a duty of care was owed. I think, you know, some people wonder, well, how could you prove that? I think if you're an employee and you have like a contract, right? I realize they have stuck there, right? But I was saying here, if you're an employee and they give you a contract, and in the contract have like you must be paid, because I'm making this up, right? So you must be paid, let's say, your money is on a certain day, right? And a certain amount of money is, but then, you know, as the months roll on, they are paying you less and less. You know, you can't say that they owed you a duty of care and you breached the duty of care, or they would have breached the duty of care, right? So once you have like a contract, that would be good enough. The truth is, even if you don't have a contract, but you may have had a pay slip showing that you are receiving an income from a company, that itself would have proved a duty of care owed. And of course, if you suffer loss or injury, that should be easy to prove. If it's money, let's say it's money that you would have lost, let's say you lost 2 months income, you can prove that. And if it's injuries, things like a medical bill, a doctor's report could prove the injuries, right? You would have to be able to prove all three though to win your case. I'm not too sure why the mic, not the mic, but the camera is sticking, right? But hopefully you all hear it okay, right? I know most of us have our mics off. But if anybody can give me some feedback, I would have no control over that though. I'm not too sure what's going on with Zoom, right? But so this is something you can learn, the three things to prove to win a case. And again, you have to know from what I would have mentioned before that the thing about civil law is that civil law is what they call a balance of probabilities. Balance of probabilities kind of mean like you would be trying to prove one thing. If you remember this little seesaw I had drawn a time, right? Of course, we had used this for risk though, but if in court, you will be trying to prove one thing you are trying to prove, and the one thing is actually the three things on the other slide. You are trying to prove a duty of care was owed. If I could scribble that down there. Duty of care was owed. Duty of care was breached. I put a B for breach. And because of which you have suffered an injury, right? So you will be trying to prove that. And what I mentioned to you in one of the classes before is that, well, the employer would have their say as well. That's why you're before a judge, right? So the employer have their say as well, and actually what they are saying, they will be trying to disprove what you would have been trying to say. So that's why they say it's an imbalance of probabilities, right? So you trying to say the duty of care was owed, the duty of care is breached, and because of which you have suffered injury, they will be trying to say everything you're seeing on this slide here. This is their defense, right? This word up here is defense. So this would be their defense, right? That they will be trying to say things like, you were the one that contributed to the accident. They'll be trying to say that you willingly accepted the harm. This is a Latin phrase, volenti non fit injura. It means you willingly accepted the risk, right? Some nice examples of that could be, and I'm talking from my experience here, let's say, you know, like a driver came in with a van, and the van tires were smooth, right? Or the driver realized that maybe the van was picking up a bit of a skid, right? But he came in, told the managers or whatever that the van has a bit of a skid, the tires probably need to change. But they have a run to make, right? They have a run to make, let's say to Galiuta, Point Fortin, Cedros, etc., right? And they explain the fact that the van tires are not perfect, that it's a bit on the smoother side, but they want someone to go. And you willingly said that you would go. They explained the risk to you and you said that you would go. What this defense is, this is saying if you willingly decided to go, then it's almost as if then you cannot or you shouldn't come back and decide to sue them then, because you willingly accepted the risk, having, you know, they explain, like having them explain the risk to you, you willingly accepted the risk, right? So these are all of their defense. The duty of care was not owed. They can say that it was not breached, or no loss was incurred despite the breach. So in some cases, you may find that people may be lying. You may find again, and this is true cases. I know Petrotrin has closed down now. I mean, there's more or less heritage, but I know of cases where people would have slipped outside Petrotrin, right? Tree branches. If you have been to any one of the offices, especially maybe the one in Santa Flora, tree branches would have fallen on cars, right? And they would have decided to sue Petrotrin over those accidents anyway, right? And so sometimes it could be argued that, for example, like maybe the tree branches that, you know, the duty of care was not breached and that maybe they did trim the branches and what happened was a freak accident, a freak storm. In the cases of someone slipping, there was one, I think this was in Pointe-a-Pierre, someone slipped at the Augustus Long Hospital that they had anyway, right? Decided to sue Petrotrin, but the point I'm trying to say is that they could argue that the slip didn't really cause an injury because it didn't really cause an injury. Anyway, nonetheless, all of these you see here are what we call the employer's defenses. It's almost as if the employee have three things to prove, right? But the employer have the will of stuff to defend himself, right? They can say the person was off on a frolic of their own, meaning, for example, this one is good, especially if the person went out of the course of their normal route then, right? If you did have to take the company's van and go down Point Fortin, and there was an accident, but the accident happened Maracas Bay, right? I mean, they didn't send you Maracas, you know, you had an accident with the company van with the smooth tires, but they can argue now, yes, the tires were smooth, but what were you doing at Maracas Bay? You were out on a frolic of your own, right? So that is what is referred to as the employer's defenses, and you have more of them. If I click this slide, to go back to the annotate, right? If you click this slide, you have more of them, more defenses of the employer than you have what the employee have to prove, right? Time to make the claim has passed or elapsed, and this is about 3 years. It could vary, right? But it can take it to be about 3 years anyway. So somebody may have been injured and they didn't bring it up. You know, a certain number of years would have passed, and let's say 10 years passed, then it's too late to bring up the claim anyway, right? So time to make the claim has elapsed, right? I know, like I said, you all have all your mics off, so again, if you have anything to add, just unmute your mic and you should be able to come in a bit, right? This one is something called vicarious liability. This is typically a 2-mark question if it comes up there. So vicarious liability, they can ask, what is this? And the simplest way to tell you this, I may have hinted at this before, this is like the responsibilities parents have towards their children. The word they use is vicarious, right? You know, like I think the simplest example for this is if you see a child cursing, right? If you see a child cursing, and we're talking about a small child here, right? Not a teenager, right? A child, right? Even if, you know, anybody sees a small child cursing, they would normally look at the parents, right? Even if, I mean, they will look at the child and they will see that as a reflection on the parent. So that is something like what we mean by vicarious liable or liability. The concept is here is that if an employee has an accident, it is almost as if the employer is responsible, right? You kind of see the accident then, or you should be seeing the accident as a direct link back to like the employer not doing what they should have been doing. If somebody was speeding with a forklift, sort of like why did the employer put in measures to reduce that speeding, right? So they said employer will be vicariously liable for the negligent action or acts of employees only during the course of their employment. If you're in the course of doing what they tell you to do, And in doing what you had to do, like going out to point 14 with the delivery vans or whatever have you, if you were doing that, the employer can be held liable, right? I think I mentioned this in one of the other classes, and that other than parents and children, I think it's almost as saying children and principals in school. I mean, like if you have someone in primary school or you remember being in primary school anyway, and something had happened to you, right? Or I guess someone that you know, even if, you know, like another child is the one that hit your child, ultimately when the principal come in, sorry, when the parents come in school, the parents will say that they're going for the principal, right? So even if it's another child that hits your child, you still have that idea that the principal is responsible. So simply put, vicarious liability is the fact that the most senior person then in the company is liable, right? You can think about that. I remember I told you that I have worked for some years in safety. This year, I wouldn't really want to tell you how much years, because the years, this year alone, 2010 makes it 10 years since I left Neil and Massey, right? And that's decided working in different places in safety, right? So I think why I was saying that is because in one of the companies I actually worked in, someone actually died, right? A young lady died early in the morning, like 9 o'clock in the morning. And you know, I mean, coming out of that, yes, it was a company, you know, but coming out of that, you know, the parents would have the managers then, like the person acted manager. Thank God I was younger back then anyway. So I was a junior anyway too, right? But at least, you know, the parents had it in mind that it was the fault of the company. And when we say the company, it's not going to be the building, it's going to be the like the managers and not the physical building anyway, right? Despite the fact that this happened on the road, by the way, it happened on the roadside, right? Still, you know, parents, and I can't give them wrong anyway. I don't give them wrong anyway, that you still see the authority figure then, right, to be the one that is responsible. So whenever we do that in schools, those of us who have kids, or you know, people who have kids as well, then that is what is referred to as vicarious liability, right? So this slide here, let's look at the time, right? So we're making good time. This slide here, the employer's civil common law duty. This is just, the only way to tell it this, well, there's two ways to tell it this. Just first of all, this is a trick. This is a trick by NEBOSH, right? A trick being, this is the same duties that you all know that we covered in section 2 of the act. It's the same duties. The only thing though is that there are sometimes, try that with someone, right? So there are sometimes they refer to the same duties as section 2 of the HSW Act, and there are sometimes they refer to it as the common law duty, right? I could tell you the times in a bit, but the point I want to make first is that it is the same duty, the same duties you had in section 2. If we look at it, I did some on the slides here. Provide a safe place of work, safe plant and equipment, safe systems of work, training, supervision, and competent workers, right? So if you see it for a question, what are the employer's common law duty? It's the same thing you see as section 2 of the HSW Act. And again, likewise, if you see it as what are the duties under section 2, it's the same duties anyway. So you may wonder why the distinction? The distinction is really a matter of law, right? But I don't think NEBOSH will ask you the matter of the law, right? The point for your exam, if you see common law duty, it's the same thing. And if you see section 2, it is the same thing anyway. I could tell you what it is though. So the point of law would have been that, and this piece is not exam, this is just clarity anyway. So the point of law was that before 1974, remember the act was published in 1974, the HSW Act 1974. Before 1974, they used to call it the common law duty of the employer. So that's just the point of the law anyway, right? Or what is the clarity in the law, right? Think about maybe, I mean, I guess none of us, I'm not too sure if any of us would have been born at that time anyway, but I guess our parents will, right? Our parents would have worked through the 50s, maybe 60s, right? Your parents would have worked through the 60s. Hopefully, if you're probably old enough anyway. Some of y'all are a bit older, right? Some of y'all younger. But your parents had been working in the 60s. And so the thing is, in 1962, then 1963, 1964, 1965, they did not have a law, right? The law was published in 1974. So what did they do? So this is what they had done. They actually had what they call common law duty. Common law meaning that it was common that the employers provided these same things for the employees in 1965. Even though it wasn't written down in a law worldwide as yet. Remember, England was first. England was 1974. America was about 1979. Trinidad was 2004. Trinidad is not too long ago that created our own law, right? But the point is, even before those years then, before you had a written law, it was almost known then that if you were going to work, the company had to provide training for you, right? That's what they call it, common law, right? Even before 1974, you know that they had to provide a safe plant and equipment for you. So that's a technicality, the law. Those things don't come. I think, like I said, the trick would come. The trick is sometimes it's like you would see what is the duty of the employer under Section 2 of the HSW Act, and then sometimes you see the question, what are the employer's common law duty? The thing to know is that it is really the same thing anyway, right? Any questions? No questions, right? All right, let me try to get that slide to move there, right? So I think we should be able to finish today, I believe it or not. So this slide, what it have in it is that you have to do a risk assessment for a new or an expectant mother of a child. That's basically all this says. If someone, of course, just gonna clarify this a bit, that you would have to be informed, right? A company would have to be informed with a doctor's note, right? So if someone brings a medical note from a doctor stating that they are pregnant, in Trinidad and Tobago and worldwide, you have to do a risk assessment over for the person. When I mean over, because you'll have to consider changes then to the person, right? Like to the person's work and even to the person in different trimesters of their pregnancy, right? The last slide I have here, if they cannot change the work activity or reduce the working hours, if that is the case, you know, for a new mom, the company had to suspend the work, right? This suspend, you mean suspend the work, and the new or expectant mother has to be given full pay with time off, right? This is the same in Trinidad and Tobago as well, right? But I think all you need to know for now from this is that once someone is a new or an expectant mother, they have to be, the company, sorry, have to keep updating the risk assessment for them anyway, right? And you see the law there, it's regulation 16 of the management. This sort of funny looking letters here, this is the management of health and safety at work regulations 1999, right? I'll say that again, the management of health and safety at work regulation 1999. All right, the rest of this slide kind of repeats some things we did before. The duty of the employer, if you look at the top heading here, the duty of the employer. I kept saying section 2, CLC here, section 2(1) of the Act has what is called the general duties of the employer to employees, and the general duties are the employer have to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all employees so far as is reasonably practicable. You can learn this. This is a 2-mark question, right? It says general duties. The participants will do the same thing. They would say, what is a general duty, right? So this is the general. I'll say it again, to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all employees so far as is reasonably practicable. Of course, we had discussed the meaning of this before in one of the other classes, right? Section 2(2) of the Act is the good section that we would have discussed before. It says the employer must provide safe plant and systems of work, safe handling, storage, transport of articles and substances, provision of information, training, instruction, supervision, safe access, egress, welfare facilities, and there's some of the other slide, right? It's a good idea though. Again, I know this, we'll probably put this on YouTube sooner or later, but it's a good idea though to learn to learn the numbers with it, right? When we have students learn this, we tell them learn 22A is safe plant and safe systems of work, 22B, handling, transport, storage, 22C, 22D, etc. You really only need to know 6 of them. You'll see way much more on the other slide. 22E, prepare and revise as necessary a health and safety policy. 22F, make provisions for the appointment of a safety representative, some from recognized trade unions. So this is EF, this should be 22G. So there's a mistake here. Consult with safety representative, and this should be 22H. Establish a health and safety committee if requested, so far as is reasonably practical. But you only need to know 6 from the list, right? And the good 6 is kind of like this one, right? A, B, C, D, right? And when I say 6, because there's 1 and this one, right? This is actually 1 as well. 2, 1, to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of all employees. You don't need to know all of them by heart, right? If you learn it by heart, you'll be wasting time for exam, because what they typically do with exam is give you like a little scenario, like where somebody may have slipped and fallen, and they will ask you like what section would have been broken. So maybe this one here, 22A, you say the company did not provide safe plant and equipment. Maybe they didn't provide safe handling. Maybe they didn't provide training. Maybe they didn't provide safe access egress. That's about it anyway. That may be 4, and typically those things can go for 4 marks. 6 will be maximum, right? Typically a question that is a 4-mark question anyway. Section 3, so can I just, I mean, these sections are just the no. Section 3 is that is the duty of the employer to non-employees. Who would be some of your non-employees? For example, visitors coming to your site, auditors, firemen, customers, clients, right? One of the main visitors, it's like to a company site, is a contractor. So the duty of employer to non-employees or to contractors, you can think of this as contractors, is under Section 3 of the Act, right? These parts hardly ever come for exam. I guess just to let you know that though. The most tested is Section 2, of which you need to know 4 to 6 maximum, right? Really, these questions are 4-mark questions, and then they're gonna add something else with it to make up 4 marks anyway, right? Section 3 is the duty of employers to non-employees. Section 4 is the duty of like landlords. Again, these things do ever come for exam. Like what is the duty of a landlord? You see the little picture here, right? In the UK, they use the phrase, if you're unfamiliar with this phrase here, to let. To let is how they would say to rent, right? We in the Caribbean say for rent. But if you travel to Europe, you would see this on a lot of buildings, in fact, quite a lot, not too sure why. They have to let, right? To let means to rent. So this, I suppose, would be the landlord, and what is the duty of the landlord to the tenants, right? And these are not very famous questions. You could think of it as, everything that a landlord's supposed to do, make sure the place is safe, proper lighting, water, right, etc., right? Section 4, the duty of landlord to tenants, right? Section 6 is the duty on manufacturers. So that's how we could just think of that. Again, these questions are very, very few. Section 6 is the duty of manufacturers, right? And again, if you're having trouble with that, these questions, like I said, I mean, for the second time I'm saying that these questions are not very famous, right? You could just think of this as maybe your phones, like what would have been an expectation of you having bought a phone. You must expect that the phone works. You must expect that the phone have instructions with it, right? You must expect that, for example, they would have tested the phone before they sell you it. So likewise, you see here some duties on manufacturers is that they need to give you the instructions. I have here an example of chemicals. So if it was a chemical that was being manufactured, they would have had the MSDS sheets. And they have to undertake tests, just like your phones. Before they would have sold you a phone, They would have had to see if the phone is overheated. They do something called a drop test, right? D-R-O-P, drop, right? If you look at, if you remember any of those car or vehicle advertisements that you see on TV, sometimes you see that they do a crash test. They do a crash test to see if the airbags are working, right? So that's a duty on the manufacturer. That's not the duty of the employer, right? So there's some duties that are to the manufacturers. Make sure that the article is safe. Make sure that you have some instructions with it. Again, if it's a chemical, I use the MSDS there. Make sure that they test it, etc. Right? One of them, if you're looking for 4, because that's 3, if you're looking for 4, again, these things can go for 4 marks, but they are very few and far apart. A duty on a manufacturer is that they do research. They have to do research as well. I know they have that on this slide, right? But they have to do research, right? Think about the phones again, the best phone, right? Phones version change, and to get a different version that has a little bit more memory or a little, higher resolution camera, they would have had to do research. Likewise, the cars, right? The different types of cars coming out, right? I don't want to say some brand of cars in Trinidad, but I go to a brand like Nissan and Mazda and Toyota and stuff, right? From one model to another model, you'll find like they would have boasted about improving the safety features, right? The airbag could, be released under this amount of seconds, the brakes, traction with the tires, they would have the lights in a different shape, a different, there's a little curve to the light, makes it different from the version before. But to get that curve, they would have had to do their research, right? So a job of manufacturers is also to do research to come up with, safer products, but also products that look a bit attractive at the same time, right? Anyway, there's a lot in section 6, and I really don't foresee any questions on section 6, right? This is also a nice section that we had touched before, section 7, the duty on the employees. We had covered this before. The job of every employee is to take reasonable care of themselves and that of others affected by their acts or omissions. Omission means their failure to act, right? So if you wonder like what a simple example is, let's say you would have noticed a tool that was defective. It would be your omission if you just leave it defective. You had to inform, the managers and fellow employees about it, right? So to take reasonable care of yourself and others affected by their actions or your actions and or your omissions, to cooperate with the employer. So we had done that already. I won't beat about too much. Section 8 is a nice section that we did not touch on. Section 8 basically is a section that says no one is to misuse or interfere with anything that is provided for safety, right? No one is to misuse or interfere with any safety provision there, right? So you may think of this, I don't have it as horseplay here. It doesn't quite have to be horseplay, right? It's just misuse. If like you're using a forklift, there are some people that I wouldn't want to tell you what goes on in a company, but some of you all know what goes on in a company or companies. Some people use one forklift to lift another forklift to get to a certain height, right? So that is an example of misuse. If you have maybe, I guess, a sling, right? And you're using that for a purpose that was not intended, maybe using it to create some sort of traction or something, right? That all of that is classed as misuse, and all of that is under section 8. A key point about section 8 though, if I could ask a question and see if you all can come in with this one. Who is section 8 meant for? Is it the employer, or is it the employee, or is it both? Anybody have a response? Who do you think section 8 is based, or based, not really based on, but who do you think section 8 is ready for? Because section 2 is for the employer, section 7 for the employee, we just did that one. Section 6, the manufacturers, section 4, the landlords, section 3, the contractors and the visitors. Who is this one meant for? Any suggestions?
Both.
Say?
Both.
All, very
What?
good, right? Very good, right? So it's meant for all. Section 8, if you look at the two words, it says no person. So that is both employer, I guess if you watch the top, you see managers, supervisors, and employees, right? Thanks for the feedback there, right? Yes, so it's meant for all. Again, the reason why I asked that is because NEBOSH has asked that, right? They sometimes, again, in that same little scenario I told you where they say someone slip and fell, you know, like what is the duty of the employers and what is one? Some people, let's say it was six, let's say it was the six duties, right? And they're trying to pull it from here. So you could have remembered, okay, they should have provided safe plant. Okay, so they failed to provide that. So then they breached 22A. They didn't maybe handle the substance goods. So they breached 22B. They didn't provide no training. So that's 22C. They didn't provide safe access to egress. So that's 22D. Well, if you have none to do with that, right? If somebody slip and fall, well, if you have none to do with that. So what I'm saying is that if it's 4 and you take this one and you take this one as 5, ensure the health and safety of all employees. So you say they break section 2.1, but then that's fine, but they ask you for 6, right? They ask what is 6 sections that could have been broken. What is 6 parts of the act that could have been broken? That's 5. However, though, you could take this one because 8 is meant for everybody, right? So you can say the employee and maybe the manager could probably use that same example. I would say maybe they knew some drill or something was defective. They knew a cord, a sling was defective, and they went on to use it, right? So yes, they broke everything in section 2, but they also broke section 8, right? What I think I'll do right now, I know the time is an hour. On our YouTube channel, we do have some questions and answers. They get the most amount of views. I have a question and answer there that got like close to 1,000 views already, right? And what I think I'll do, I could probably do some questions and answers and post it to the YouTube channel as opposed to having us do it in class here, right? So that may be something that can help you a bit. So I did have in mind to do one for law, right? Where a question just like that, like where they give you a scenario where something happened and they ask what was the sections that was broken. So I'll probably do that for you next week. I mean, next week, around by Tuesday, Wednesday, I may get some time to get that done, right? So I'll put out on, again, those of us who have subscribed, you'll see it coming up anyway. So that's how the questions could come nonetheless, right? Just a little bit more to go, right? Section 9, is it duty not to charge employees for PPE? Just in case, I know you're not seeing all of that there, but I just kind of broke it down there, right? So no employer shall levy or permit to be levied on any employee of his any charge in respect of anything done or provided to comply with specific requirements of statutory provisions. Don't learn that. I'm just telling you, I mean, you just have to know that that really means that the employee, if you go back and read it, the employer is not to charge any employee for anything that has to be provided to keep them safe. So this is actually taken to be, or taken to mean the PPE section that the employer is not to charge the employees for PPE. Section 36 is a duty on managers and supervisors that they can be held responsible for the negligent action of their employees. That's Section 36. And Section 37 places the duty on more senior managers. If you look to the top, you see directors here, right? So the directed minds of a company could be prosecuted if an accident happens on site. And we started the class by talking about the corporate manslaughter Corporate Homicide Act. So all of this they have in the UK, right? This slide, and we almost finished off the lesson for today. I think this slide is active. Let's take off the view here, at least the slide view. We almost finished with it. Yeah, there's about 2 slides again to go, right? This slide here is this slide, and it has the law that pertains to risk assessment, right? A lot of students believe that risk assessments, you'll see in this slide, right? This slide with risk assessments in it? Yes? Everyone, I just shared
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
I know that Zoom, like if I change my view, you'll have to, I'd have to go and click the button for it. Anyways, if I say yes, right? So a lot of people believe that risk assessments is a requirement in the HSW Act. That is actually not true. The requirement to do a risk assessment is in another law. We came across this law before. This is one of the regulations, right? And I had the acronym on this slide here before, the Management of Health and Safety Regulation 1999. Regulations 3 is the law that say to do a risk assessment. It's not the old 1974 law then. In fact, the story goes that in 1974, the phrase risk assessment was not even a phrase. It was not even a catchphrase then. I mean, today everybody knows risk assessment, right? But in 1974, it was not a phrase, so therefore it did not make it into the law then in 1974. When this law was written though, 1999, they put in it that regulations 3 say you have to do a risk assessment. And this is actually chapter 3, based on the book that you have. It's either chapter 3 or chapter 4 in your textbook. Anyway, the point of saying that is because this is a lesson coming up still. We still have to do the lesson on risk assessment, right? And I think that's it. We had done this question here before, so apparently we finished there with a couple of minutes to spare, with 4 minutes to spare. Now, what this means if we are finished, it means, well, I'm not too sure what books you have, like I said, but again, it means that a big element would have been finished. Element 1 then would have been finished. You only have 5 elements. I think it's 4, sorry, you only have 4 elements in this course, and this would have been the hardest one. And if we are finished here, the only thing we have not done too much of, and I made mention to that just now, we have not done too much of past papers, right? And I safely believe that we could probably look at one, but I feel if I do them like as a 3 minutes video, just do it without the student input at first and put it up on YouTube. I think that may be it turns out to be a better video because I normally could edit it and put, you know, like a background music and little graphics and stuff with it anyway, because those normally get the most amount of views compared to the normal class videos anyway, right? But what it means though, is it means that next week I will have to send you a new PowerPoint. I'll have to send you element 2, right? I know we have Jamila and we have Ressa, so you may have covered this before, right? I have to send everybody it anyway, so you have to get a new PowerPoint for next week, Saturday. And you'll have a new lesson next week, Saturday, which is health and safety management systems. And the part of this syllabus that we want us to focus on is the health and safety policy, right? But I have all 10 of you here. I'm seeing 10 persons here. Right, 10 persons on the class or in the class today, right? What you need to know though, I mean, not as if you miss, because the thing about Zoom is that if you miss, the sessions are recorded. And speaking of recorded, let me just stop the recording because we have actually stopped the class. I'll stop the recording, right?